Hey, what's up, friends? Hope you're doing well today. Here's the question that I wanted to put on the table for our monthly leadership conversation, right? It can sound simple, but the question is this: what are you actually measuring right now, right? Not the version that you're talking about in staff meeting, not the version maybe you're giving the board, not the version that you're sharing with other people, but internally, what is the number or the thing that you're actually checking first to let you know if things are okay? So here's my hope is by the end of our conversation today, my hope is that every leader can stop and begin to assess what are the current markers that they're looking for in their ministry, with really one honest question: what am I actually measuring? What is the thing that I'm actually measuring? So excited to be with you today for a few minutes. If we haven't had a chance yet to meet, my name is Andy Abramson. I'm the one of the team members for Elementum here. We get the chance to work with leaders all over the country, and it's such a joy to walk with you in this season and help so many amazing leaders that are doing amazing things. So we're jumping into the fall, and lots of things are on the table right now. We're talking to leaders as they're thinking about welcome weeks and moving in and events and ministries that are starting up. And so here's the question: like, as we begin to ramp up for the fall, as we begin to think about a new season of ministry, what are the things that we're going to measure? What are the things that we're going to begin to assess in terms of how well that we're doing in our ministry? So here's the thing: is a lot of us have been given default things to begin to evaluate, and often it's around numbers, right? Are people showing up? Are people coming to the thing? Are people coming to our midweek? Are people coming to the event? And those aren't necessarily bad things, but here's what I want to tell us here today: is that attendance tells you who showed up. It doesn't tell you who's being formed, who's being transformed, who's growing inside of their lives. And so you can have two ministries that are doing the exact same thing on paper, right? Two ministries that fundamentally, if you were to look from the outside, have the same environments, have the same spaces, have the same things that they're doing, but there can be completely different work that's happening underneath the hood of that ministry. And so same seats, same signups, same programs, but one is building a certain depth and formation that's happening in the lives of college students and young adults. And if we're not careful, we can actually be measuring the wrong thing, and we can default to the easiest things to measure, right? So, whatever those things are for you that are super easy to measure, often that's attendance, often that's income, often that's people showing up. Like, those are the easiest things for us to count. But when we step back, the question really is: are these the best things for us that tell the real story of what's happening in our ministry? And so here's the tension that we feel as leaders, right? That most of us as leaders, we will by default inherit metrics, and we think about like signups, we think about counts, we think about attendance. The numbers, they exist because they're easy to report, they're easy to kind of take a handle. You can pass it along to the board, you can pass it along to the staff. But here's what I want us to understand here today: those are not telling the entire story. It doesn't tell whether somebody is being transformed. It doesn't tell if somebody's growing, if there isn't formation in the life of individuals. And so I don't know if you've ever experienced that before. There you go, my scratching dog. I don't know if you've ever experienced that before. I have several times, right? Where there's a pressure that we begin to put on ourselves when we are just beginning to focus on the external numbers, there's a pressure that begins to show, and there's often can be a relief when the numbers are looking good, right? So if things are up and to the right, things are growing, things are moving, what can happen is that can quietly in the background begin to do something in us that creates a relief in order that doesn't allow us to begin to identify and push towards really the things that are happening within the ministry, right? So if something's off beneath the surface, if our dashboard is merely just numbers, we have no way of showing that. So what I want to do today is I want to introduce really a framework of three things that are worth measuring instead of numbers. Now, here's what I'm going to say is numbers are a indicator, right? They're not the only indicator. And so what I want to do is I want to move today and really begin to shift us from how do I get the number up to what would I actually be looking at or for if something was really happening beneath the surface. And so attendance can be a presence metric, but it doesn't help us create things to identify formation. And the mistake is often that we can be tracking it and treating it like formation is happening. So here's the framework I want to spend for just 2-3 minutes. And then I got 3 questions for us, and then we'll keep moving forward this week. So here's the framework. 3 things worth measuring inside. Number 1 is initiative. Initiative, what it does is it begins to show you what somebody values, right? So think about people that are moving from receiving to doing things without being asked and taking initiative. Think about like volunteering being unprompted, right? I don't know if you've ever been in that situation where we have like you've had some type of outreach event and you've had to like push to get people there. But what would it look like that would be differently if the volunteering, the initiative was unprompted, right? They were unprompted in terms of showing up, serving, discipling somebody else, starting something on their own. Initiative is a formation signal that we can begin to analyze. So when we see initiative, what it shows us is there's an increasing value of people loving other people, of people engaging, of people wanting to be a part of what God is doing versus just showing up at a group, right? So one of the things that is worth measuring, not just numbers, is initiative. Here's the second one. The second one is depth of conversation. Depth of conversation. Are the conversations and the questions in your midweek, in your small groups, are they beginning to get more honest, more more in depth, less surfacey over time? If we can begin to look around and see people in conversation going deeper, right? People beginning to not feel like that they have to have everything together. I think that that's one of the challenges. I was talking yesterday with a leader on this as we were at his church, and he was just talking about the temptation for us as people, right, is to have to project that we have everything figured out, right? That I got my life together and following the Lord is easy. But what would it look like for us to begin to peel back the layers of the need to project a certain image of who we are, of what is going on inside of us, where we can move towards more honesty? We can feel like that there's a sense of safety in those conversation, what that begins to highlight and begins to indicate is that formation is growing and showing up in the people that we're leading. And when we see certain depths of conversations, who are people who are willing to go deep in conversation, not just showing up, that is something that we need to take note of, right? So, number one, initiative. Number two, depth of conversation. Here's number three, multiplication. Multiplication. Are people reproducing the things that God is doing in their life, in the lives of other people, even if they don't show up at your program? Right. So even if they don't show up on a Tuesday night or a Sunday morning, are people reproducing the things that God is doing in their life? Are they discipling somebody else? Are they engaging a mission field? Are they starting a group on their own? Or are they just consuming? Right? Is there a level of consumption? See, a ministry can be full of people and still not be multiplying. And that is not just a growth signal. It's what love actually does. It overflows, right? When we are transformed, when Christ is moving in our lives, the love that we receive is poured out into the lives of other people, and people will become conduits, not reservoirs. So here's the thing. We look at these three. We look at initiative, we look at depth of conversation, we looked at multiplication. Often none of these show up in a normal dashboard of what we have conversations with our leadership or with our staff. But if you can actually begin to watch for some of these people, you'll begin to measure things and pay attention to people, not just the spreadsheet, not just what Planning Center tells us, right? And um, it's not that these are the only things that we measure, but these are some of the things that we see when people are being transformed. When we see uh, people's lives changing and being loved into something, not managed into something. So I want to give you a couple stories and then three questions. Okay. I was actually, this is a personal question. So this last week I was in Moscow, Idaho, Pullman, Washington area, and sitting down with the couple that is leading the ministry there. And they were just asking about what are things that you're celebrating right now, Andy? What are the things within Elementum that you're really excited about? And honestly, like I could say, one of the things I would be excited about is the growth in the numbers of events we're doing, the growth in the numbers of leaders that are jumping in with us, which are good metrics, right? Those are good things. But as I begin to kind of reflect on this answer, it wasn't necessarily the number. Here's what I said. There was two things that I was most proud of in this last season. Number one is the depth of relationships that we're having with leaders. I shared this story with them, this couple, and said there was a few months ago, we had a leader community here, which is like a quarterly gathering for leaders. We have a couple of them right now. One in North Carolina, we had a couple weeks ago. We got one in Austin here. We're looking at another one in Florida, another one in Southern California. And so we were talking, and I was mentioning to them, I had this conversation with my wife after the leader community, right? So we're laying in bed and we're talking about like how it went over the last couple of days and what some of the leaders, and I made this statement. I said, if you would have told me back in 2010 that this is the depth of relationship that we're going to have with leaders, I probably wouldn't have believed you, because I feel like that we've been at a spot where we're going so deep in relationship that leaders are being so vulnerable and that there's a level of care and support and engagement with those leaders. And so I said that that's one thing that I'm most proud of. The other one is the longevity that we're having with leaders. And I told her, I said, we have a group of leaders right now that have been with us over 4 years. 4 years. They've been working we've been working alongside of them. We've been helping them in their churches. And I look at that and just say, what that shows me is a level of um, support and connection that they feel that is allowing them to stay beyond that. And so for me, that was like a huge formation thing. Here's the second story I was thinking about. So 2 weeks ago, I was up in Oklahoma, and one of the leaders that we work with is up in the Edmond area. I was staying with him and his wife. We were meeting with some other Oklahoma leaders over the course of 2 or 3 days, and we were talking about his upcoming season. We've been kind of tracking with him for probably 3 years now. And so he's making some pretty big shifts in some of his spaces this fall. And so one of the things that they're doing is, when they started, they moved from just 2 community groups, and now I think they said they have 14 community groups, that people in homes, they're meeting together and sharing life together, on mission together. And so kind of that was running parallel with that was a monthly like worship gathering. And so they, once a month, they would gather together and connect. And so they're shifting from monthly to weekly. So this is like a big shift for them, is to press into weekly. And he made this statement. He said he doesn't care. He said, Andy, I don't care how many people show up. What I care about is whether it strengthens their community groups. It strengthens their relationships with people. That strengthens the connection amongst each other. And he said this, he said, if we get to the end of the year and we're doing an evaluation and we're doing this weekly and it's not strengthening the thing that matters the most for us, I'm going to cancel it. And so he was actually asking the right diagnostic question even before he ever launched, right? So he was looking of saying, like, numbers is not the metric. Numbers is not the thing that's going to drive us. We're actually looking for formation. We're looking for a certain depth of relationship and connection with student to student, student to leader, that is going to be the marker whether we continue doing this or whether we just cancel it. And so, man, it was just such an encouragement to look at his scoreboard. What was that thing that he was measuring some of his ministry by? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I want to give you 3 questions, 3 reflection questions today, and then we'll keep rolling here because it's Monday and we got lots of stuff that we have on the list and to look forward to. So here's the first question. Okay, the first question is, what's the metric you've been proud of that you're not so sure actually means what you thought it meant? Okay, so as you look at the thing when you lay your head down at night, the thing you're measuring, is there a metric that you've been focusing on that you're actually not sure means what you thought it was? So I'd encourage you, sit with that this week and ask the question, like, what am I measuring? Okay, so that's question 1. Here's the second question for you. If you couldn't look at your attendance for a month, right? So you had no access to the attendance. What would be used instead to know if your ministry was actually healthy? So if you were not allowed to look at attendance number from Sunday school, from your small group, from your weekly worship service, from your campus ministry, if you couldn't look at any numbers for the week, what would be the thing that you would go to next that would determine whether the ministry was moving in the right direction, whether the ministry was healthy? Okay, so that's the second question. Here's the third question. Where might your dashboard be telling you things are fine when you're already suspecting that they may not be? I'll say that one more time. Where might your dashboard be telling you that things are fine when in your heart, when you lay your head down at night, you actually suspect that it's not? I would encourage you sit with these 3 questions this week. Reflect before we head into the season of launching new ministries and students coming back on campus and young adult ministries starting back up in a different season. I'd encourage you sit with these questions. Ask these, sit down, to take a journal, take some time and reflect on these questions and really begin to diagnose and assess what are the things that we are paying attention to. What are the things that we are quietly measuring, and are those the right things? So there's an encouragement for you, quick framework, 3 things to pay attention to when you think about initiative, depth of conversation, multiplication, and then 3 questions to sit with this week. Man, so good to be back with you. It's been a couple weeks out on the road, but we got a couple weeks here. We're going to be pushing towards some of these conversations. So make sure you jump on our monthly webinar, our monthly training that's going to be happening. We'll go more depth into some of these things. Look forward to walking alongside of you, helping you in any way we can. We love you. Proud of the work we're doing. You're doing, and man, so excited to see what God is doing. Okay, we'll see you next week. Okay, have a great week, everybody.